Plan Commission is the extent of the use that this applicant is proposing. I said that at the very beginning.
So it doesn't matter when everybody in Riverwoods who's paying $34,000 and $36,000 a year in taxes and doing everything, and that letter was absolutely beautiful. I could have written that. That's my life story. I thought it was just perfect and poignant and beautiful. But it doesn't matter, because you're just saying it has nothing to do with the vote. It has to do with legality or whatever is there. So why are we here? Hey guys, it means nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Thank you.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to ask everybody if they could try to keep your comments just a little shorter so everybody has an opportunity to speak with everybody still here.
But we had to listen to their presentation and everyone on the board.
Go ahead.
Here, okay, Susie Davis. I will try to be brief. I know a lot of this was covered before. I'm the aforementioned Ward Foremost who lives right next door to you, Kathy's in Kent. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to read it. It'll be faster than me trying to pick through what has already been said or not. And then I have just a couple comments at the end, and then I'll be fine. So this is for my father. My name is Ward Foremost. I own and reside at 2440 Duffy Lane. I'm the closest neighbor to 2470, and I would be the one most affected by this application and waiver. The application letter quotes, "Such residents must be over 55 years of age and require assistance when performing activities of daily living." This description actually, to me, describes a nursing home. Somebody who doesn't need help with their activities can stay home. The letter also states the residents will not drive, have no automobiles. Well, obviously, someone who cannot take care of themselves cannot drive. Again, this tells me that this will be a nursing home. I've been informed that some person has been going around the neighborhood and glorifying this plan and asking people not to oppose this. According to this person, they will add 1,000 square feet to this home. They're going to create a beautiful garden around it. They will have a very fancy and exclusive place, and it will be an asset to Riverwoods. They would be charging as much as $10,000 a month. Anybody who does not need full-time care would never pay this kind of money just to be entertained. This is nothing but a money grab. This would be a very lucrative business which would not benefit Riverwoods and its residents in any way. I've been living here almost 40 years and have had Mr. Eichhorn as my neighbor and friend all that time. He was a very good neighbor and friend to me. The last couple of years, his health started to deteriorate. He spent time in the hospitals and also spent time in nursing homes because unfortunately Medicare only allows so many days in a nursing home, and after that you have to find another place to go. Sometimes it would bring him home, and he had a full-time caretaker. While he was home, the paramedics were called 3 or 4 times a week. They came with that big paramedic truck with the fire truck behind them with their diesel engines running, shaking our windows. Our bedroom windows are approximately 18 feet from Mr. Eichhorn's driveway. Somehow these episodes mostly happen at night, so the paramedics would sometimes come at 11, sometimes at 3. They would stay there for half an hour to an hour and leave. Now this is one person who needed so much. Multiply this by possibly 13 or more people that want to bring into this home. How many times will the paramedics have to come over there? How will that affect our lives? We didn't mind when Norman needed help. He was our friend. But if you approve this application and waiver and a bunch of strangers are over there disrupting our lives, we're not going to be very happy about that, and neither will all the neighbors around us. Now, obviously, with this kind of activity, it's going to also decrease all of our property values. Then he goes on to state about putting people into nursing homes, how out of necessity they, when the husband puts his wife in, or vice versa. A lot of people feel guilty. It's a heartbreaking decision, very much needed. He went through it himself with his wife's mom. He was 79 and his wife was 70 when it happened, and when she needed that kind of help, they were not able to take care of her. They felt very guilty, and they tried placating this. They went sometimes 2 times a day to visit. So again, now all of these people, because of their guilt trips, will try to come twice a day or every day to see their loved ones. So even though the residents of this home will not be driving, there will be a lot of traffic going in and out from family and friends visiting, doctors, nurses, paramedics, fire trucks, and employees coming and going, again, will disrupt our lives. He says, I have one question for the members of this Plan Commission. If someone had made this proposal for a property next to your home, how would you feel? What would your answer be, knowing what I described is going to happen to you? He also went on to say, now we went on the internet to Google the applicant, Engaged Senior Homes LLC. We could find nothing on them except for in 2018 they applied for the same thing in Northbrook. written in the Northbrook Star that Engaged Senior Homes LLC approached Northbrook to build this home but wanted the number to be 16, which Northbrook frowned upon. I think you guys all know this already. There's also nothing on the internet about this Engaged Senior Homes, so they have no record of having any experience in running a place like this. This is a big point against them. So for all these reasons, I'm asking the commission, no, I'm begging you to please deny this. A place like this does not belong in a wonderful residential area like ours. It's just about a money grab. This would be a very, very lucrative business, and believe me, it's just a business. I would like to thank you for listening to me and hope you will listen to us and deny this application sincerely before foremost. He apologizes, he's in Arizona taking care of his own medical issues.
I was the contact.
Yeah, so I just have one question for you, or actually two, but one. With all the other properties in the area, and you had mentioned it would not be economically feasible for many reasons, why did you choose Riverwoods? And specifically, why did you choose this particular lot?
You know, what we'd like to do is have a ranch home, so there aren't a lot of ranches. And
There's a bunch in Gray's Lake. The property, I mean, it's a very expensive community is what I'm saying. If you're looking at property cost, Riverwoods is a very expensive place to buy. So why would you not buy a home for, say, $200,000 in Gray's Lake? Why would you spend $600,000 on a house right in Riverwoods with enormous property taxes?
well, you know, to buy a comparable home, we've looked at homes in Gray's Lake, there's homes all over the area. When you have a larger lot and a ranch, and they're all about the same price. They're not substantial. I mean, a very small little ranch would be expensive, but that wouldn't be suitable.
Right.
And the selection is few, to be honest. We've gone through the entire area. It's not, we haven't put our crosshairs on the Riverwoods. One, it's a beautiful community, and two, it came down.
But your residents are going to be inside their, like, they're not going to be, you know, out in the
Deerfield, right next door.
Yeah, probably, like Villa has lots of big properties and bigger homes. And
Right, and if one had showed
Okay.
up at the right
The other
time.
question I had, and
Okay, go
then
ahead.
was, shoot, now I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh, you had mentioned that these, you know, I'm 58 and I have some disabilities. I certainly don't need to live in a home. I don't need assistance yet, but, and I do commend you guys, honestly. I know it's a much needed industry. So I'm not condemning any of that or what needs to be done. It's just the location. But you mentioned that they won't need medical care and yet they need assistance. So what type of assistance, and somebody who cannot drive, somebody who literally has to have assistance on a daily basis, but doesn't need medical care, exactly what type of assistance is that?
So the state mandates that. and-
Please, Madam
Thank you.
Thank you.
The question is, what is the condition of these residents going to be? So it'll be the same condition as someone who lives in all the assisted living communities that you know of, the bigger ones like North Shore Place. The state mandates that these folks need assistance with their daily living. So they need help with ambulation, right? Walking safely and not falling, getting in and out of bed, getting in and out of a chair. They need help with dressing, bathing. Now, they all won't need all that help, but that's what an assisted living community does. They help people with assistance in daily living. It's very specific.
Who's going to do
Thank
that?
you.
What are the qualifications of the people
Excuse
who
me.
are going to assist?
Dr. Guys, you had your turn. We were very patient with you, so I'm just asking so we can move on and get everybody an opportunity. Thanks. And go ahead. Go ahead.
My name is Renee Wishner, and I live on Julie Lane. And I live very close to the house. And I had no notification. In fact, I just came home this past week from Florida, and we received a note from the neighbor in the mailbox, and that's how I found out. And there are over 2,000 people, I believe, that live in Riverwoods. And a lot of people are not home. They are away. They are in Florida, they are in Palm Beach, Palm Springs, they are in Europe, who knows where they are. They are not home now. So it seems, it's kind of odd that you would have this meeting now and vote on it now when you do not have all the people of Riverwoods here to know what's going on. I lived in Deerfield. I mean, not everything's going to be connected here because I don't have anything written, but we raised our family in Deerfield. I moved to Riverwoods 14 years ago. If you have wetlands on your property, you cannot remove them, even if they're in the front of your house. You cannot remove those wetlands or weeds that are in those little wetlands. God forbid you do that, you have to pay a tremendous. I have a neighbor who paid over $50,000 for removing wetlands. I had a brand new house built across the street from me. That they have weeds growing everywhere. They can't remove the wetlands because of some your head engineer or whoever it is working for the village.
It's a
But
state,
yet-
it's a state law.
But yet you can have a business in a private village of homes. Why did you choose not to go on Deerfield Road? Or there's plenty of places that have a lot of land. Plenty of places that go out of business. Okay, and here we go. I pay almost $20,000 in taxes. I have $1 million home that has not been over $1 million, that did not regain yet from the crash, and now it won't. For sure it won't. I pay those taxes so that we have, mostly we focus on the police department and the fire and ambulance department and the schools. And this summer I had a life-threatening pulmonary embolism, and they were in my house within 2 minutes. That won't happen again. They saved my life. That will not happen again. And my mother lived in a home off of Deerfield Road. She had Lewy body disease, which is something that Robin Williams, that's what Robin Williams, the actor, died of. That is a combination of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And they don't identify, he kept on saying through his whole presentation that these people can do their regular daily activities. Well, if they can do the regular daily activities, she just mentioned all the things they can't do. And if they can't do that, I know from the experience of my mother, who I saw every day, almost every day when she was in Chicago, and daily when we moved her out to Deerfield. And when she was in my home, before she got even worse, before her, how this aggressive disease destroyed her, she needed a caregiver. And you can't tell me that these 13 people are going to have 2 caregivers, and that's enough for 13 people. It is not enough for 13 people. And if you disagree, then you weren't that observant or that involved with your mother or father who suffered having some dementia or disabilities with age. And at night, to have one caregiver, it just doesn't make sense. And who lives on Duffy? Do you live 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 on Duffy? And why are you an attorney for the village of Riverwoods? I don't know you. I've never seen a presentation from you before. But it seems You're supposed to find every which way as an attorney to fight for your village. And you are not doing that. Every which, I don't know anything about the law, but a good attorney tries every which way to fight for their village. And it appears to me, my impression of it, I was so upset tonight interrupting because I got no notice of this. No notice at all, and it's so unfair. But it seems to me, well, I'm going to ask a quick question. Why quick? This is going to destroy a certain area of Riverwoods. The monthly or bi-monthly newsletter of nature and the animals, and I don't know what you're doing. I just don't understand why you're doing this.
Well, by the way, I have to say,
Well,
that house is in a.
You don't live on Duffy. None of you live on Duffy. None of you live around the corner from Duffy. I take Duffy all the time. It's a country street.
I know.
Sometimes there's no traffic. Sometimes there's a decent amount of traffic.
It's a flood zone.
But it's a house. It's a house next door to another house. It doesn't make sense at all. And you're going to have people come to hear an estimate from you that maybe there'll be 2 or 3 cars of visitors coming. That's nonsense. You have no idea how many people are going to come, realistically, are going to come every day to see their family or their friends. No one knows. And then all the people that don't live in Riverwoods. Who are all these people who are going to come in and now learn about this wonderful village of Riverwoods? Who are these people?
Where are they gonna
Some of
park?
these delivery people and criminal background checks and the staff. Who are these people? You know, I'm trying to remember. I had a very good example. I can't recall it now. But I'm fearful that more crime will come into Riverwoods because Riverwoods will be known. It'll be more well known now. And there was a robbery in my house the first year I moved in. But I fear that there will definitely be more crime because we don't know who's coming in. We just don't know.
well, thank you very much for your input.
Well, it seems like you're not listening to anything I've said. It's really, really disappointing that you folks represent us. I don't understand. Do you people understand why they're doing this?
I have to say
I hate to say this.
That house
Something
that
you're
they're
getting
doing
from these
is in
people
a
that you
flood
don't
zone.
understand it.
Okay.
Does that make a difference that they want to build something in a flood zone? I know, I live next door. Mine is not a flood zone.
Any housing issues and building issues
It's a
will
flood
apply to
zone.
them as much as it would apply to anybody else.
But they're building this whole big thing for people to go in. Why would they build it in a flood zone? Doesn't that make a difference and mean something?
As I said, I'm not the village engineer, but all plans will be reviewed and they'll get no special.
Why would they want to build a house in a flood zone?
Okay, I can't speak for them. Okay,
It's a
thank
flood
you.
zone.
Thank
You
you.
should be ashamed of yourself.
Thank you.
You're not, don't fake me. You're not representing this village. You're not representing the people of Riverwood.
It's a flood zone. What is this on?
My name's Jody Figura, and I live on Glendining, right around the corner. So my question is, if it's the law and they have to come in, what then stops other businesses from popping up down the street, or 5 more of these can come in and overtake our community, which we are paying very high taxes for? And you had mentioned you didn't want to put a fence up. I don't know if you know, but you can't put a fence up. I want to put a fence up, and if you go up and down the street, there are not fences because they are not allowed. So if a fence isn't allowed, why is something like this allowed? And once you open the floodgates to this, so many other businesses are going to try this. So it won't be able to be stopped.
They'll try it. They'll open 5 more. Once they got in there.
And they're going after the baby boom.
So the recommendation that comes out of the Plan Commission and then goes to the board is on a zoning request. Even if someone is approved from a zoning standpoint, it doesn't mean they're approved from a building permit standpoint. So we have people all the time, applicants who get a certain kind of zoning or special use, they still have to submit plans. Is it possible that they would have gotten the zoning relief that they were looking for, but then can't build out all their plans because of issues like wetlands or floodplain? It's possible. That's their problem.
Right, I get that, but I'm saying,
So,
if this is profitable,
right,
then this company or another company who then sees this as profitable
right.
could start buying up all the houses in River Woods to do this, and then once you say yes to them, you can't then go say no to the other 5 or 10 businesses that want to open an elderly care facility.
So,
Why this needs to be a regulation, not by exception, not by case by case.
the courts don't look at it that way. A number of towns tried to say that group homes could only be within so many feet of each other. They tried to limit every 1,500 feet, every 1,000 feet. And the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals has very recently told the city of Springfield that they violated the law with their ordinance, which tried to limit how close homes could be together. Most of the villages around here still have some kind of spacing requirement, but most of them they probably know are invalid. And again, there is a comment from the U.S. Department of Justice which put out some guidance on how it wants to see these regulations interpreted. And it said, we're not saying that there is never a point at which there is over-concentration. There may well be a point, and of course the courts didn't define that yet, at which the character of the neighborhood really changes. But in a couple of decisions that I've been studying, the courts were very hostile to towns which said, well, if we let one in, then there'll be 5 more. The court said, no, deal with each one on a case-by-case basis. Look at the standards, evaluate the standards. If they meet the standards, then, exercise your zoning power appropriately. When the next one comes in, it'll be a different set of conditions, and you'll have the same review as you did on the first one. So we have this comment all the time: if we approve one thing, aren't we bound to approve another? No, we're bound to apply the standards that we can apply in each individual case.
Okay, so then my last question is, if most of the people in our village, and again, no one knew about this or everyone would be here, I also did not receive anything, and I know it's not the 300 feet away, but as a courtesy of taxpayers, and we're not in a huge community, everyone should have received a letter. And to Renee's point, most people are out of town, so it's just weird it is at this exact moment. If we all said no, we don't want it, and you then, since you are our elected officials, said no, and we got sued, how much would it be for? Maybe everyone would want to buy that and pay it up. I mean, we don't even know, you're just saying we're gonna get sued, but what's that mean, for $5,000, $20 million? I mean, what is
I
it?
have a sense about the law that's a higher calling than that. Our job is to try and do the right thing and comply with the law, not to figure out what it would cost us to evade it. I would never want to advise the village that this is what you can get away with if you don't follow the law.
Right, but if those things everything they have to say, then we should know all of our stuff too. It just feels like from the moment you came in here, and I don't mean to be picking on you, and I know you're an attorney and you're just trying to do what's right, but you should be neutral, and you don't sound neutral at all. From the second you walked in here, you're on your side. And you should kind of maybe just not say anything, since we're not even have a choice, and then go for it. It's just, I don't know.
I suspect many people did not appreciate, at least I didn't, the extent to which federal law determines how we should be applying these standards, and I thought it would be helpful for everyone to have that as a starting point. I certainly wanted the Plan Commission to have that as a starting point because I want them to be able to apply the law to the best of their ability.
Well, why are we here? We don't have a voice.
Okay,
Why are we here? Tell me why we, just answer, why are we here? We don't have a voice, we don't have a vote, we have nothing. So do it behind our backs. Why are we here? Let me know.
well, I think think the reason you are here, you're making a very good example of, and that is you're speaking your mind. And that's fine, that's what this is for. So please
Speak
understand.
my mind, to have that next door to my house. I don't need to speak my mind. I want to have a vote. I want to have a reason to be here. I want the majority. We live in a democracy. It should be the majority of
Okay,
people
we
here.
just, okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know.
Hi, my name is Ellen McKnight. I live a few doors away from the property in concern on Duffy Lane. I just want to, raise things that weren't specifically raised. I'm not going to recover. Obviously, some of the reasons that the law is going the way it is because a senior group home is seen as analogous to a single-family dwelling. There's a line, for instance, Brentwood wouldn't be able to take over private residences and put up a huge nursing home, right? There's a line. So I think it's where you draw the line. I do think 13 to me seems excessive. I think it's unreasonable. I think it is very concerning on some of the issues that have been touched on already, but one that I just want to raise in particular for Duffy Lane. So I think the company does not have the experience I would like to see of doing a senior group home to be able to make predictions. So, we have to take it as it is. But saying my father had dementia and was in assisted living, and I can tell you that we were responsible for 2 to 3 cars every day. And he was in a place that had parking, so that was all right. I don't think that saying there'll be cars for 2 staff members and a visitor is enough. I think it'll be way more than that. People will be coming and going. But here's the part that I didn't hear raised before. The plan up there showed the change in the interior. It did not show the exterior. I do not have a sense for how big a parking area we're talking about. If on the one hand, they build a big enough parking area to accommodate what I think is actually going to be necessary to accommodate all the visitors, also emergency vehicles will have to be accommodated. It's going to be an eyesore and it will be inappropriate. If on the other hand, they are not going to apply adequate parking, they are going to push people to park on Duffy Lane, and I just want to point out there is no sidewalk, there is no bike path, and every day when the weather permits, there are families that bike up and down Duffy. I see them all the time. There's going to be a safety issue because the cars along Duffy Lane are going to push families into the middle of the road to pass, because that's what happens when you see a car parked there now. But now it's very unusual that there's a car parked on Duffy Lane. If I'm ever going to have cars parked on Duffy Lane, I call the police department here and I say, is it okay if we park? They always say you have to be all the way off, you have to be on the thing, but you know something, our culvert comes down, your car starts to tip. I've done it. It's not a good thing. So I just want to make sure that I think this 13 is very ambitious. To me, that crosses the line into a larger business. And I think there's some real safety concerns and unreasonableness in this particular plan for this particular space that I would like considered.
Thank you.
Good evening. My
Good
name is
evening.
Serafim.
Good evening.
I live on Duffy Lane also. Just for the record, my occupation is hotel development. So what I've seen, it's not adequate for 13 people.
It's what?
It's not adequate for 30 people. You cannot put 13 people in these boxes that I saw there. My question though is to our representatives. We are here because we are debating a zoning change. Are we debating that, or are we debating something else? What is it that we're doing here?
The request is to waive the strict application of a requirement that says you can't have more than 3 unrelated people. They're requesting that they have permission to have up to 13 unrelated people living in a facility, in a house that would be licensed under the act that they mentioned, the assisted living Shared Housing Establishment Act. So if a recommendation is made by the Plan Commission to grant the waiver they request, or to some extent, or to a full extent, I don't know, then the matter would go to the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
If the waiver is granted, then they know that they can get, there'll be an ordinance passed if it's granted to some extent, then they would know that they have the ability to have that use
I understand.
in the village.
I understand. Now, on your response, is that a for-profit or non-profit?
They've indicated that their businesses are for-profit, but
So it's a business.
the courts have held group homes are a residential type of use that are proper to be in a single-family residential neighborhood, and they've held that whether or not the operator of the group home is for-profit or not-for-profit. They understand that for-profit entities could make a business out of providing a residential type environment for people with disabilities.
I heard you. I know. I'm just trying to make a point here, because when you're going for profit and you're putting a company and you're putting a business, the zoning is changing. The requirements, they're going from residential to commercial, which means that there are going to be different limitations and different opportunities there for any company that goes into a residential zoning, right?
The property will not be rezoned, it will stay residential, it will stay in the same.
But it's a business that's going in. So, in other words, I can come up here and say, I have a large house,
Yes.
I want to have, senior people coming in. I'll be charging them $8,000 because I want to be competitive. And I'll do it. Can I do it? Can I put a request for that?
You could put in a request.
Okay, so everybody here, you have a business opportunity in front of
Bed and
you.
breakfast, bed and
You can do
breakfast.
it. And
Yeah, you should put a bed and
the bottom
breakfast.
line is this. What everybody says is that we're very conscientious about what you guys trying to do and how you guys can try to help. I just pulled on Zillow, McHenry County. Are you guys aware of McHenry County? Do you know where it is? Do you know how many acres you can get for 100,000 there? I'm just saying.
Far from
Okay.
family.
I'm sorry?
Could be far from family.
I have friends up in McHenry, and it takes me from here half an hour. If that's the problem, that's not my problem. If that's your problem, or the family's problem, because you guys are for profit, and you need to be close to the families, that's not a problem that we have here as a village. The reason why we live in Riverwoods is because it's a residential area, it's quiet, we pay the taxes for that reason. If something like that comes on Duff Lane or any other small residential street, what are we doing? You guys are gonna push us out. I'm a young person, right? So, the clock is ticking, as you guys say, the age. Somebody has to come back and pay the taxes here. Guess what? If we're moving out, I don't know what you're gonna fill in. You keep in mind these things when you guys are gonna make a decision. Because at the end of the day, you're talking about the future of the village. And by all means, I understand what you guys are doing. I'm not opposing what you're doing. It's just that Riverwoods is not the right place for such business. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Is there anybody else on this side of the room after this person? Okay.
My name is Diane Rosenberg. I live at 1 Lingby. My east boundary, 243 feet, abuts the north end of the property that we've been talking about. When I came here tonight, I really didn't know what to expect. I went to the website because I also did not get a notice. I heard from a neighbor, went to the website, read about it. And what I read was 13 possible residents over 55, no cars, 2 homemaids, 1 person at night. And I thought, okay. Then I read the next part. part that stuck out was make necessary and reasonable accommodation for lowering housing barriers for persons with disabilities, fine. And the last thing I read was the ordinance, because we were supposed to speak tonight to the fact that you're looking for a waiver for the ordinance to move from the 3 to 13 people, so fine. And it said that the ordinance then that might be, if the ordinance was waived, then the village might adopt an ordinance, and that ordinance may include conditions pertaining to the subject property. So it seemed like there was a next step that was going to occur. Well, first of all, you know, tonight everybody was very emotional, and I'm not particularly, it's hard not to be emotional. I live right next door. We are all here. This is our homes. If you're not going to get emotional about that, you won't get emotional about anything. And, you know, democracy is really messy. I'm interested in the facts here. When I came in here, I got more and more confused. First of all, I'm confused because I do not understand now exactly what make necessary and reasonable accommodation to lowering housing barriers for persons with disabilities. And we've gone back and forth about the disabilities, and I know you've given your definition, I've heard your definition. I would like to make a decision. I would like us and be able to make decisions that are unemotional and based on information that's been confirmed. I'd like to know exactly what these definitions for disabilities are. I want to know when, because I paid attention when you were speaking to the part where you mentioned that the factors that have been looked at in other places are whether reasonable and necessary and reasonable accommodations have been made. I want to know in places where this has been defeated, what were those limitations? I heard you say noise, activity, traffic, the intensity of use, lights, maybe the quality. That was very vague to me, the quality of life in single-family residence. I just want some information that if we're going to, because the emotional part of this is how are we going to deal with this issue before us in an intelligent way where we have some chance of, if we don't want to have this facility here, how can we best approach the issues so that we can, as residents, have our community remain residential?
That phrase, lowering barriers to housing, has been interpreted, applied by the courts to mean that you have to consider waiving the maximum number of unrelated people. That's what it really means. So you have to consider letting a group home that will have more than 3 unrelated people. That's the necessary and reasonable accommodation is group living for people with disabilities where there's more than 3 unrelated people in the home. That's basically what the accommodation is.
And so if that's
And what I said at the beginning, I realized it was a lot of material, and also was a lot from the Planning Commission as well, is that as the case law has developed over many years, it's become apparent that a group home of, say, 6 to 8 residents in a single-family neighborhood is absolutely going to be held to be a necessary and reasonable accommodation. So the outset, it seemed like I was prejudging the issue is because I'm telling you that the courts have prejudged the issue. They told us that group homes of 6, 7, 8 people provide people with a disability a means of living in a single-family neighborhood that they otherwise wouldn't have.
Does that apply to 12 or 13?
And so, and I'm now going to get to the next part of the question, where the instances where the courts have said no, the villages have exercised their zoning power appropriately, is where the villages have declined to allow above 8, 9, 10, and there have been cases where people asked for 15, the village said no, or county said no for various reasons, and that was upheld. So, and that's why I said it's a matter of degree and a balancing of interest, and where municipalities said we have reasons why we don't think we should go above a certain number. The courts start to back away from the idea that you have to accept group homes as a component of single-family districts, and they start to back and say, okay, you can exercise certain zoning authority, and it's that balance that we're trying to find here.
And I appreciate your further explanation of that. And what I'm getting at here is that some of the points have been brought up. For example, the traffic on Duffy and parking on Duffy. if you get to that number of 13, I think that that is really a valid cause for concern for people in the village. The parking issue of where you're going to put extra cars, I think is a valid issue. And those things that we've been approaching emotionally are really very practical. If we had, specific information, I think they're very reasonable and practical and factual. You just start collecting information. How many parking places are? I looked at that footprint, and you went from whatever it's 3,700 square feet or what it was to 5,500. That's from like 2004. Your addition was 30 by 30. That's 900 square foot. There's a pool house there. I don't know if that's part of the plan. My property, I would look straight back at that, and without fences, I have a pool, which I think would be probably a pond that I put in there. They have year-round water for birds, not that it makes any difference, but it's an attractive nuisance on one hand too for folks, which is a concern for me. And, so there are a lot of, emotional and other issues, but I'm just really interested in what kind of information would we have to come up with that would be reasonable and affect the legal definitions or moving forward, because I think there's plenty of emotion around that would show you that overall there probably more citizens would not be for this than against. Maybe we can't take a vote here, but if that's what it looks like here tonight, but the bigger village probably you'd come up with something similar. But so that's what I want to know is, what kind of information do we need, and how would we apply it in this case if we wanted to keep this from happening to this extent of 13. Thank you.
Thanks.
What about the animals that come out? The deer, the coyotes, the raccoons? What do you do when they come out?
Hi, I'm Dr. Tina Zafakis. I too did not get the notice, by the way, of this meeting lesson. Otherwise, I would be better prepared. I'm a board-certified internist that deals with geriatrics, both inpatient, outpatient, and skilled nursing facilities, and I do have quite a few patients that are in group homes and assisted living facilities. So I agree with a lot of things that my fellow Riverwood residents are saying, so I just want to say my 2 cents about the 13 potential residents with the 2 caregivers. My experiences with understaffed facilities is where a lot of the injuries, falls, and complications arise. And I get many calls a day from various facilities. I know it's not a skilled nursing facility, but they too are understaffed. The key is that it's understaffed, and forget about the dementia patients. When anyone that has moderate dementia, they need at least a one-to-one caregiving setting 24 hours a day. I just wanted to make that point across. If I was better prepared, I would give you a lot of data, my information, a lot of other things to go on. I don't want to be repetitive, but I thought I would give you my expertise on that matter, and the fact that I hope our Riverwoods EMS system is going to be well prepared for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sure, come on.
Hi, my name is Phil Guzik. I've lived here off and on since 1973, for whatever that's worth. I didn't want to frame this all around. I think we can all agree that with some exceptions, the vast majority of those Riverwoods would prefer that nothing like this happen. Recognizing that, our objective should be, your objective should be, making it as contained as possible within legal constraints. Without the legal constraints, we wouldn't be having this meeting, right? So I would highly recommend and ask, one, because of our antiquated communication system, that we communicate with the rest of the village, that we defer or deny a variance like this, that we come up with very specific regulations that address how tightly can we bound the number of people that are appropriate in a community like this, where the housing values are 600,000, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. What is the appropriate density for a community like that? What are the detailed constraints we can put on the level of caregiving? And as the good doctor suggested, how tightly can we evaluate each resident as they enter the facility for actually qualifying as a disabled? Clearly, over 55 doesn't qualify, given our 94-year-old testimony. So respectfully, now is not the time to say yes to this. We are constrained legally to say yes to something. Let's find out exactly how tightly we can say yes and write those regulations and allow everybody to, in the village, to vote and vent and be aware of it as well, so they're not all upset with you. I just think that a much more methodical approach is appropriate here. And yes, I think, even if it's required, 13 is absurd. So whatever the zoning regulations are, should be required appropriate parking for a facility of this type. Any other, I'm sure that our engineer knows all the issues with the amount of traffic coming in and out, and then what's the quality of the driveway and the driveways. I mean, all of this should be addressed in excruciating detail in the regulations regarding this facility, or what we should put into the village code to allow such facilities. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dale Lott, and I've got two questions. You mentioned that you're going to have meals included, is that correct? Who's going to prepare the food, the meals, and where is the food coming from?
When you license assisted living facility, and you have regulations about food.
Well, so that means you're going to have other people beside the 13?
The manager, caregivers, they will.
Okay, and what kind of water supply is there at the present time in that facility? Is it well water or is it like Michigan water? Community well water? Okay. Which, when you've got 15 or 16 people, it's going to be pretty much of a drain on the water supply.
What's a community well? Before we go any further, what's a community well? It's an individual well. It doesn't share with somebody else. Okay.
So I'm not a math major.
Hold on, wait a second, Pat. You want to jump in there, Pat?
I'll be loud. It's a individual well, right?
It's individual.
Right, it's just for that house.
Okay. That's
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I say I'm not a math major, but I figure 13 residents and 2 staff members and a staff member at night is 16 people, not 13. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So there will be 16 people on this. Is that correct?
At the time of day,
Yeah.
they won't all be there at once.
But there will be 16 people there every day. Yes or no?
Yes, I guess, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a letter from one of the residents.
I'll make sure that it gets into it. Yeah. Anybody else? So,
Yeah, excuse me.
My name is Ginger Trask, and I really just have questions. One of the first questions would be to the Planning Commission. Does the state of Illinois give the Village of Riverwoods any additional subsidies for having a property like this within the village? And if they do, what do those funds need to be used for the village?
I believe, Bruce, the answer is no to that. So the answer is no.
So there's no advantage for the village to have a
The village
property
will
like
not
this?
subsidize this at all.
Okay.
The only thing I would say, certain taxes that the state imposes are shared with municipalities on a per capita basis. And I suppose we would be adding some residents to the village, but net, I don't know, because some people, in other places have small families and move, and many people moving into the village in recent years have been people without children. So how the population overall of the village would change, I can't really say, but We do get some funds from the state that are based on a per capita basis, but there's no subsidy for having this kind of facility.
Okay, and then also a couple of questions for you in regards to the food question. So are your caretakers preparing food? So you have one of your caretakers preparing the plan and really taking away from quote unquote caretaking?
So we're going to have managers and oversight. The state.
If you're gonna answer, could you stand up and use the microphone?
So our caregiver and or a manager will be cooking the food. All right? So we're going to have we'll have caregivers, we'll have 2 caregivers during the day. And we're going to have a manager who has oversight. That's why eventually we want to have 3 of these buildings in a pod. But we'll have a manager available in the community if needed.
And I just asked in regards to food safety,
Yeah.
how are they training the people who are going to be preparing the food? Are they certified in food safety? Have they taken classes? There is a certification for food safety. And if you're going to be feeding these people, are these people certified?
You know, I'm not aware right now of any specific certification. It's the same, we have our caregivers that are cooking for people all the time in their home, but we follow the state requirements.
Okay.
The food is, first of all, we follow the state requirements, both for safety and that's part of the inspection. But the food is not for commercial sale. I mean, there's not people coming in and out that are eating.
Okay,
So-
but that's not my question.
No.
You're really not answering the question. It's very
But,
simple.
does
You're going to have 2
compare-
caregivers during the day.
Yeah.
One of those caregivers, I would assume, is going to be preparing meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
For a period of time. For a period of time.
For a period of time. Well, I don't know how often you cook, but when you cook, if you're cooking for that many people, it's not a 15-20 minute meal unless you can't even have a long sandwich. Okay? And then what if you have those that have special dietary needs? What if they're diabetic?
Right.
Is the caretaker qualified to know what kind of a meal to prepare for that?
Excuse me, could you stand closer to the microphone, please? I'm having trouble hearing.
Okay, so if you have a resident within this facility